Hello, welcome to the We Happy Few podcast. I'm Leighton, and you're probably wondering, who are you? And the thing is, there's been some changes in the background, and there was a decision made a while ago that things would wind down after the Sicily tour. But due to some feedback during the Sicily tour and even after the Sicily tour, people didn't want it to go away. So, with myself continuing, I'm trying to figure out what to do next. And one thing I really wanted to do was to catch up with Ben, who was our tour guide on Sicily, um, and the unbelievable job that he did on Sicily. And you'll hear about that, and I'll mention that as well because I was baffled by this in an incredible way. Um, yes, and we're going to try and figure out what to do next. If I'm honest, whether that's some podcasts here and there, more tours, but let's catch up with Ben and chat about Sicily, and people who were there can listen, a little bit more about what the history was, and people who didn't go can find out what that history was. So, Ben, welcome.
Evening, Leighton. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. A little bit nervous, if I'm honest, but as I've just lost my bottle. But yeah, good. Yeah, good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And it's good to have this opportunity to catch up. And just hearing your intro, then I'll put my hand up and say, yeah, I was one of the people that believed that you should continue with this. And I have met many of your patrons, your followers, your friends over different tours or events, and uh, it was quite clear from their feedback that they want something to still look forward to. So I'm glad you've taken this decision to try and still move forward, and it's really valuable for them and also new followers, listeners as well. Hopefully, it'll be of interest to them.
Yeah, no, no, appreciate that. Because yeah, that's right. You mean, in terms of I know you did a large one last year, and I think this was your first sort of mini one with us. Is that right?
Yeah.
'Cause I say that with a question mark because I haven't done every single one of them. There was one to Eindhoven I had to miss because it was two back-to-back ones. And I think, yeah, what you said there about keeping it going, because I think you'd seen, although, there was probably half of our usual number of people on those tours. For you, what you said to me was, it was quite evident that people wanted us to go, keep going. Listen, you would, listen to people talking. Hell, even Bobby Schofield and his uncle who were there with us said exactly the same thing, and even a message out, from Bobby afterwards, said, don't stop. And I suppose it's hard to figure out what. I mean, going back to the summer, I think when I say we, me and you, we're talking about, you know, I loved what you're doing with the Liberation Route Europe and looking at, stuff around, the UK, because I think you even highlighted some things to me. Gosh, I think I was looking to go into RAF Welford, and then you just threw out a couple of names to me, locations, one being Broadwell, RAF Broadwell, which was right next to where I used to work for quite a few years, driven past it countless times and didn't even know it existed. Hell, I've even spoken to people about that place who work there, who used to work there and didn't know that it existed. And it's an incredible piece of history, which, I hoovered up a couple of books by Neil Barber on the British Airborne and that location. And so yeah, and I know we always spoke back and forth about, and always felt like to me that I always wanted to be like the JD of Europe, but like a Wish version or Timu. That's, JD Hewitt History
Yeah.
Underground. Because there's so much. I mean, that's another conversation, but that's going to come to another conversation towards the end of this podcast as well that we've been speaking about recently, which is I think is absolutely phenomenal because no one does it as well, is what I'm really excited about. And there are some great locations we can go and see as well. But before that, I think let's talk about Sicily. I mean, first of all, I have to comment on you. Hadn't been there before, but when you were there, and I think this shocked a lot of people because they didn't know that. I don't know if they knew that or not. So I'm not going to say that they did, um, but it felt like you had. Felt like you knew the place. Felt like you knew the ground, and I think that became quite evident quite early on at Aviola Beach.
Yeah.
And you shared on your Twitter. I don't think you credited me, so I'm really angry about that, by the way. Um, but the drone shot. And what I liked about that, and I think you can see it as well, you can certainly see it on another one where we were Gala Beach, where you're using a stick. So yeah, let's talk about that and that style of touring, because I think it's brilliant, by the way.
I will say before we dive into the Sicily tour that your group uh, that have been on many tours now to different battlefield locations across Europe have had very good reputable guides in the past.
Hmm.
And I obviously was aware of who they've been with in the past that I didn't want to let, first of all, we Happy Few down, but I also did not want to let the group that were taking down either. So the comment, yeah, right, I hadn't been to Sicily before. It was a new opportunity for me for my own personal development and learning to look at somewhere that I really haven't looked at in great detail before. So it's a great opportunity to do that. But it also shows the power of the internet because the routes that we were taking pretty much
Oh God, yeah.
sat and went through them on Google Street View, thinking, can we get a coach down there? Where are we stopping? Where are we turning? And it looked absolutely fine on Google Street View, but you've always got that doubt in your mind, thinking, oh, that corner might be a little bit
Yeah.
tight for a 50-seater coach. But
We
uh,
had one issue though, didn't we? We had one issue. I just it's a shame that we passed up again a house we could have stopped up, but it doesn't matter because I think that's an excuse to go back there. But yeah, we had one issue, didn't we? But not our fault, not not because of the buses or anything like that.
language barrier with the driver.
No, no, but I do want to cover that. I do want to cover that. Actually, out of the box thinking. But no, in how you dealt with that, I thought was brilliant again. I was just marveled. Um, the location where we thought, the mafia or that this resort or something slash mafia
Yes.
place.
And we'll come back to that in a minute because just by pure chance, I know someone who went out there this week.
Hmm.
They'd seen me out there and they'd sent me messages asking for a few pointers, and they did go to the house with the turret.
At the farmhouse, the SAS Rogue, the SAS house.
Yep. And they
Yeah.
also did get down to the other battery that's on the northeast of the peninsula. They weren't turned back by the mafia as whoever they were. But
Yeah.
we'll come back to that in a minute. So it
Yes,
makes more sense
of
to
course.
listeners, but I'm sure those that were there are probably laughing at this point,
Yeah.
recalling what
Lovely
it was.
work, walk home. Was a lovely walk. Get some steps in.
As one of my colleagues says to me, Joel Stopples, he says, problems on tour. But it wasn't much of a problem. But
No.
yeah, so 2 days out on the ground in Sicily. The distance wise, there was a lot of ground to cover in the 2 days, and with it being in November as well, the other side to that is that daylight hours
Yes.
weren't in our favour. So it wasn't like you could say a normal tour where you're out at 8 in the morning, probably getting back 6 at night, seeing lots of different locations. We were governed a bit by the times of daylight, but it still didn't stop us from having a few little extra stops at places and seeing a lot on the ground. And we're
Most
back
wonderful.
up in Catania,
Hmm.
so it was more obviously what you class as the
Yeah.
British Canadian area. And we covered that on the Saturday.
Hmm.
On the Sunday, we went over to the American sector down to the south. And again, distance wise, with that, no real way round it unless you hop different hotels to be pre-located. But it worked for everything that we wanted to achieve for the group. That got to see everything from the Italian concrete bunkers, emplacements,
We love our concrete, don't we, Ben?
yet through to memorials. And the key thing that I always say, it doesn't matter who I'm out on tour with, the key thing is walking the ground. And we
Yeah.
were able to do that at numerous locations to get a real feel for what was taking place. And
Incredible.
I'll probably just add to this that for those that weren't aware of the tour, we planned it around the BBC series SAS Rogue Heroes, and that was season two.
Yes, two, season two.
Featured the Italian campaign, Sicily, and then Italy itself. So we were looking at the actions covering the SRS or SAS on Sicily, and that was one of the key features with Bobby Schofield, who played David Kershaw in the series, and I'm sure most people will have seen it. Uh, and it gives a chance
Yeah.
to compare
It's
the
the back
reality.
end of, sorry, obviously, jumping onto this, sorry to interrupt you. Bobby Scofield loved it, and going, the back end of season two, that was our second location. But I mean, before then, obviously I know we'll talk about that first location. But yeah, no, he loved it. Yeah, he absolutely loved the tour.
Yeah, yeah, especially with the role that he played. And I was we were both kind of asking him what background did they get insight to it. They had on set historical advisors. They'd obviously
Hmm.
got Damien
Yeah,
Lewis's book, not Damien Lewis, sorry, Ben McIntyre, isn't it?
yeah.
Ben McIntyre, SAS Rogue Heroes. They got that to go off as well, but a big talking point with the guests was around what was portrayed in the series to the realities on the ground. And that probably leads us nicely into the first location that we went to, the Lambadoria Battery on the peninsula that the SRS go to and attack and knock out the position that's depicted in the series. So that was our first location that we headed to.
I mean, yeah, that's a. I mean, for me, I want to talk about this one just a little bit, just because I think I can't remember if we covered this in the recording part or even pre-recording, where the terrain was unbelievable. It's not quite like Normandy, for that invasion force. And I sent my drone up, which for me adds a really different perspective to what we're looking at as well. And I think I've still got a couple of videos to upload, but the one I have uploaded is on our YouTube channel, by the way. Please like and subscribe. But if you look at it, um, it's I can't even describe it. I don't know if you've seen it, Ben. But if not, please look on YouTube and like and subscribe. But it's rock. I want to say rocky. Is there's we were Avola before then, weren't we? Or was that afterwards?
Ah, yes, sorry, yeah, that was
But we
where.
have a nice beach as a lead in, very smooth, very, I suppose, very typical of what you see, Normandy really, and what we saw at Gala, which is the following day. But for the SRS, the terrain, yeah, it's
Yeah,
brutal.
you're right in saying that the landing beaches that we went to see, uh, as you'd expect, pretty wide open, suitable for vehicles, armor to roll off, landing craft tank straight onto the beach and load, so on. Um, Not really for obvious reasons, again, in rocky areas or cliffs, because you're not going to get much off a beach if that's the case. But the batteries, you can start to draw comparisons to Normandy with it. So when we talk about the Lambadoria battery, we're not talking about the height of Point de Hoc, probably 20 to 30 feet cliffs for them to scale upon landing on a very shallow beach.
Yeah, it was interesting as well because, and I think we're all, again, you wouldn't have known it, but you knew. It was unbelievable, and everyone was bought into it. And it was really great to see that. I mean, I stand back a little bit, because I want to obviously get photos for social media, and obviously I didn't want to really fly my drone just yet, because I know that can annoy people. So I always try and leave that till afterwards. But I did do it at Vola and I did do it at Gala, but so I just saw you doing it and I loved it. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it was quite an interesting terrain, and you can walk through the bunkers there, or the artillery, the battery, sorry, I don't know what you call them. I should know this, know my background, but um, the bunkers, let's call them the bunkers, or where the artillery was housed, the batteries were housed, sorry, my mind's going blank here, I should, but
Yeah, they were literally open gun platforms, not like the casemates that people are used to seeing in Normandy with the Atlantic Wall. And you say they're relatively small as well. They weren't
mm, no.
huge guns, so just on open uh, gun platforms with 360 fields of fire that would be moved around, and then you got ammunition storage bunkers linked to it with convenient uh, windows apertures that any gun crew that were down in the ammunition storage area could quickly pass rounds out and load above ground. Pretty straightforward complexes, and the that particular battery we visited, you'd got three open gun platforms with ammunition housing, magazine storage, and then you've got a what is similar to a steel cupola, really, but it was just a concrete one that once again would offer 360-degree fields of fire or observation for anybody who was inside it. So plenty of concrete around the battery area.
No, it was, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think what that appreciation. So we do see that in the back end of season two, episode one. And again, one of the great reasons Bobby was there, because we do see and hear Bobby a lot, or his character Dave Kershaw at that location. And there was also a fatality. They lost a guy, didn't they? Which we'll come to that later, which I thought was quite poignant that we were able to visit that chap as well with Bobby um, from the SAS or SRS, sorry. But no, it was just phenomenal. And one thing I want to take away from that as well is people do this, whether it's sand, piece of concrete. I got myself a little bit of the bunker. Well, I was on my way to get a little bit of the bunker to get wet piece for Bobby as well as myself because I thought it'd be a nice little thing. But Bobby was ahead of me with his uncle Mark, who's a lovely guy, um, and he was already getting himself a little piece of that bunker, a little memento to take away, which I thought for me showed a lot. I think it showed what that show means to him, but also, and Dave Kershaw, but also as well visiting that site as well. Because I spoke to the military advisor Ben. He joined us last year, sorry, earlier this year, sorry, for a day. We'd had him on the podcast previously. Um, and yeah, I think he replied to something on Instagram. Um, Lovely guy, and spoke about this actual location, and he was like, "You went there? What was it like?" And he was quite curious. I mean, obviously he knows from his own research, to assist, with production, but I did, I've got a bit of a piece I could send to him, which I do need to do is what do that as well. But, you know, he's one who's interested on coming on another one if we go back there or even another location, because I think he'll offer that wonderful insight. But yeah, it was just Bobby was to see that Bobby take a piece of the bunker, just for me, it showed how much it meant to him being there.
Yeah, he was massively invested in it, and that
Mm,
very clear. And uh, you could clearly see that that acting role for him wasn't just a paid acting job that he was going to go in and do his part, and then what's the next job? And getting to know Bobby, it was really apparent straight away that he had a genuine interest in Second World War history as well. So he was fully engaged in the history and the subject. And I think he spoke to us about even reaching out to Kershaw's family, didn't he? Just trying to engage with them as much as he could to
yeah, he did. Yeah,
he like as a person. And no doubt Bobby was thinking, can he bring some of those stories into his portrayal of
very Band of Brothers-esque that is as well, by the way. Which he's a big fan of, and maybe you like to think because he's a big World War II guy as well. Bobby is
yeah.
massive interest in World War II. He's a collector of militaria, um, and there's a story there as well after the tour where I had to go and pick something up for him, and from a wonderful shop called Warren Sons. And But yeah, he's got a massive interest in World War II, massive, and I think he auditioned for Masters of the Air as well. Or
Right.
he auditioned or wanted to audition, and I think he got rejected. He told us this, didn't he, Ben? Was he rejected? I hate to say the word rejected, not required. And he also,
Right.
like, most of the guys within Rogue Heroes had auditioned for Masters as well. And he always felt like his thinking around that is we're the rogues. They're the nice, posh airmen flying. We rough it, and I thought that was a lovely thing. What he said was we're rough around the edges. We know we're not there's no shine to us, effectively. We are rogue and we are the rogue heroes. And I love that they are just the
Yeah.
rejects, let's call them, or what he called them, that they didn't get the big Gucci job, but they
Yeah.
got, and they created a brotherhood as well.
What just trying to reflect on what was said and the key points that we discussed about the attack, the successful attack on the battery, and a big talking point is obviously the portrayal of Blair Paddy Mayne
Yeah.
in the series, and I'm not really going to go into that with this. Everyone will have different opinions. But one of the questions that came up was in relation to the briefing that took place out at sea before they came ashore. Was that did he really brief, or would he have briefed his men to say that you're going to see men of the
Hmm.
air landing brigades in their gliders in the sea that have crashed shore and drowned in, and to ignore them and literally carry on into the shoreline and not to try and save them at all. We obviously discussed that, saying that it was obviously dramatised for the series and that they wouldn't have briefed on that because again,
You wouldn't know. How would you know? How would you know? That's my thinking on that.
yeah, why would you be briefed for something that's unsuccessful? And from the first Airborne Division perspective, they're fully confident their plan's going to work. They've got trust in their tug pilots. They've then got trust in their glider pilots. So why would you be briefing your men to say there's going to be lots of them in the sea? And the obvious thing is with that as well, that once the SRS can be delivered to shore, as those landing craft then turn to go out, if there was anyone out there, which there was, they would then act as a rescue, but it wouldn't have been briefed that expect to see British men all in the waters and just ignore them.
Yeah,
It,
that's quite a
I'd also say there's a good chance that the SRS would have been briefed knowing that there would be landings taking place by
Mhm.
the 1st Airborne Division, but the detail and level of what they were doing would not be disclosed to them because it's on a need to know basis. It's
Yeah.
top secret, it's secret. And as it is today as well, on that need to know basis, you wouldn't be briefing that level of detail onto other
No,
units that wouldn't need to know.
they
Uh,
don't need to know. That's exactly what I was going to say. They don't need to know.
No. So yeah, there was that side to it.
That's what
And
you
it
said. I was going back to that. The way you just said it's a dramatization. I think it's to enhance because I think it obviously feeds into. Obviously, I don't want to go into Rogue Hero sort of critique or anything like that because I think it's a wonderful show. And I'm so glad that the UK have done something like that. But I think it feeds into the characters of Dave as Reg Seekins and their PTSD and what they do. Well, certainly Reg Seekins and the turmoil that he's dealing with later on in the series as well. I think that sort of leads back to there, doesn't it? I think that's probably the foundation level of. I think that's what they're trying to get at, wasn't it? And it's just
Yeah, I mean, even David Kershaw at the end of the Sicily episodes, he's having that confession with the priest that betrays them, and again, that's purely fictitious for the series dramatization. But yeah, uh, bringing in that PTSD side of it, especially Reg Seekins'
yeah,
standout point in the series
it
for
was.
me. But as the series says, though, at the start, this is not a history lesson. It's not a documentary. It's there to be viewed. And with these things, I just hope it inspires people to go away and buy the book, read on the history.
Yeah,
Come on a tour, just come and read or
walk
come
the ground. Yeah,
see
I
the
mean,
real.
there's so many great books on the SAS as well. I mean, Tom Petch has a, Damien Lewis, the author, Ben McIntyre. Some
Yeah,
wonderful books out there, and you're right that it shouldn't be used as a an anchor for.
there are more positives to it than negatives, in my opinion.
Mm.
And this
Oh,
took
absolutely.
happened if it wasn't for that series.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we wouldn't exactly, and I wouldn't be delving into the 82nd Airborne and looking at, elements of their history a little bit deeper because of their pre-norm. I mean, you could for me that all starts back with, you know, buying a book and I've got a couple of the unit history books by Phil Nordyke.
Yeah,
I want to know a little bit more about Sicily, what happened in Sicily, which I don't want to jump ahead in this, but I
yeah,
want to know more.
yeah. And the other thing that stood out is the series kind of portrays the attack on the battery at one location. And again, that just fits in with the series with costs of budgets, I bet, film sets and just how it was done. But the reality on the ground on the peninsula is very different because although Paddy Mayne's orders were to, once they'd knocked out the Lambadoria battery, to re-embark, to go back out to sea onto their ship and wait for further instructions. It kind of alludes to the fact that he believes that he saw and heard of a battery firing further in the distance on the peninsula, and that he felt that he should immediately go and take that out and push his men onto it. And again, that no doubt will be disputed. Did he just go off and do that on his own accord? Did he really see or hear that? But again, they successfully push on further into the center of the peninsula. They go up to the what is a house that had been fortified by the Italians, including kind of a turret that is built onto it where you've got a range finder. And because it's sat on the high ground in the peninsula, it's got that full view to the north, out to the east, to the south. It's in a very, very good position where they quickly mop up the defences there before then pushing on to the north of the peninsula to then take on the other batteries and successfully knock them out and destroy them as well. And it's during that period that Bombardier Caton was killed by a Italian, and the story alludes to the fact that they'd kind of rounded up Italian prisoners of war by then, and one of them kind of just shoots and obviously mortally wounds him.
Mhm.
And he eventually dies of his wound on 10th of July 1943. This is. Um, and yeah, he was or is now buried in the Syracuse Commonwealth War Graves Cemetery. And we're able to conclude the day by going to visit him
Yeah,
as well. So it was very poignant to.
very. And when I got home, I rewatched that. I don't think they give the name, do they, in the show of who that was?
No, they don't. They don't
And
name the
it's
show.
a shame, really, because I wish they had, even at the end, very, like what Band of Brothers did with Brick Manor, and obviously certain elements, you
Yeah,
know, what they, depicted as well. I think because yeah, it'd been nice to have sort of known that name during the show, but obviously you've done your research, you found him, and I think yeah, it was very poignant to go there, and I think to have Bobby with us for
yeah,
that. Bros was well, what we did have is an SAS Berry. Now that was purchased from Soldier of Fortune for me to get signed. I had to give to one of the tall people, because I only had three of them. But purchasing it from Soldier of Fortune, their descriptor is that they provided these for SAS Rogue Heroes. And I think, before handing that beret over to somebody who, had purchased it, obviously I put it in front of his grave or his headstone. And obviously took a photo, which I haven't posted yet, but I do need to. And obviously with the group, paying their respects alongside Bobby. And I think
yeah.
just having that beret there as well, I feel like a little tribute in a way you could say is where I was, because it's provided for the show where this chap was depicted, but not named, sadly. I felt like it was just for me, it's just a nicety, I sort of kind of get my words right for this, just something a little bit different and
That
honor him
mark
a
of
little bit more.
and just with the name. Yeah, well, um, yeah, I don't think they do like a roll of honor, do they? Even after
No, it's a
those
shame, really. Even
Italian
like, if,
game.
I could,
But
you know, I think it's just something that Masters of the Air sort of missed out as well. The Band of Brothers did very well. Certainly after the Cormana episode, is just fill in the gaps,
Yeah.
like a little bit of text just to say who, if somebody passed, was killed or how many wounded, what happened, just a little bit, or what happened next over the next few days before we get to the next episode. Um, but no, I suppose moving on because we could chat, we're chatters. Um, yeah, where did we go next after that?
Yeah, we obviously left the Lambadoria battery. We drove past the fortified house with the turrets, and we went to the north of the peninsula to then walk into the second battery that we wanted to visit. But unfortunately, as we walked down the country lane, uh, we got to a corner, probably no more than 500 yards away from the battery itself. And out of nowhere, a gentleman just kind of
Shoot
uh,
us away.
he just appeared from nowhere, dressed all in black, stood in the middle of the road, made it quite clear to us that he wanted us to stop, and then just wagged his finger and gestured for us to go away. And for anyone listening, wondering where we were going to, it is the Emmanuel Rousseau battery at the north east corner of the peninsula. And obviously, I was not going to argue. Followed his instructions as requested, and we couldn't go to the other part of the battery, but it was just one of those. My one of my friends is actually out there or was out there this week, and he messaged me to say that one, they did get up to the house with the turret. They just went up the track. The house is completely derelict, but fenced,
Oh,
which they obviously respected that, but just viewed it, looked. So they did get up pretty close to it. And also, they were not stopped by anybody, and they were actually able to get round to the Russo battery as well. And he said that was interesting. So I think we were just unfortunate on that day. Whether there was something
yeah,
coming down there, who knows? But you're not going to argue. You respect. Uh,
no, not with that country. I say that country who operate in that country is probably a better word. Sorry. I.e., you know, yeah, the
the
mafia.
the myth of the mafia is probably what I'd say, but no, it's one of those, and it doesn't matter which country you're in. If a local or security requests that, you respect that and you move on, and everybody understands that.
Yeah,
So we were disappointed, but
but yeah.
yeah,
And
we
no, we were having a great time. I mean, to be honest, with you, we had the weather on our side. I mean, that was glorious. Um,
twenty
and I think we
yeah
had, we well enjoyed, we went in, and had lunch, um, probably a little bit longer than normal. What we may have had, silver lining and all that jazz.
yeah
Um, and then I suppose, yeah, the next one, let's move on to the next place of where we went. Probably need to go a little quicker, but I mean, yeah, Ponte Grande.
and yeah. So yeah, moved on to in the afternoon, moved on to the Ponte Grande Bridge where we're covering the British First Air Landing Brigade coming into to there in the early hours of the morning to capture that key bridge. And it's obviously there to wow, their task is to keep that bridgehead open to allow the movement of forces coming up that are landing on the eastern side of Sicily, then to drive north up towards the port town of Syracuse. Uh, so that was the key objective, and it was a good opportunity to start to discuss the failings of the some of the airborne deployment from the parachute perspective, but also the glider perspective. And
Mhm.
one thing that stands out, whether you're discussing the British or the American airborne operations, is that the weather was massively stacked against them. And the conditions, high wind speeds.
Yeah.
Uh, on reflection, not as though they'll probably be able to do anything about it. And we spoke about Gavin with the 82nd Airborne in particular in relation to this. There's not a lot they can really do to postpone it. The operation's going to go ahead. Bearing in mind you've got forces shifting all the way from Tunisia out in the sea to the south of Malta to get round to Sicily. There's no real turn back option is probably the best way to say the distance is far greater than the Normandy landings if you make a comparison again. And they're going to be landing in winds 30, 35-mile-an-hour winds, a headwind for gliders. That makes a big difference for
Yeah.
a glider coming in, or also for those jumping with their parachutes. That's going to cause severe implications for missed drops, completely missing your drop zones. And there's American accounts. If you go off their military doctrine at the time, I believe anything above 15 mile an hour's, 15 mile an hour wind would lead to a postponement of an operation. And you've got that account of one of, I think it was an intelligence officer or one of the meteorologists running up to Gavin, sat in his Dakota on the airfield, being told that wind speed over the drop zone's 35 mile an hour. And you can probably just imagine his heart sank, thinking we're going regardless, and I can't do anything about this. And I just hope the pilots, the navigators pick up on this and potentially shift their courses or drop deeper into a drop zone. Yeah, you can't imagine what would be going through their heads. And then the implications of that quickly come to light with the gliders. It is depicted in the SAS Rogue Heroes series that gliders,
78 gliders
yeah,
landed at sea.
yeah, is about 250 men drowned in the
Jesus.
region of around that out at sea.
Yeah.
Uh,
So here's a question for you, Ben. Sorry. Gliders. Why? Obviously, I know there's an element of kit. They want to take vehicles, artillery pieces, maybe, but troops. I
yeah,
mean, trying to think of it from a sort of the why and
yeah,
not airborne. I say airborne because paratroopers.
yeah.
Why glider troops? Why have them when you've got paratroopers? Does that make sense? Do you think
So, two reasons as to why. First of all, the new way of warfare, the Germans had successfully used gliders in 1940.
hmm
And probably the set piece that I always refer to in relation to the German operations is the fortress in Belgium, Ebenemal, where they land their infantry slap bang on top of the fortress,
right,
or one of the most formidable fortresses in Belgium at the time, and it's quickly taken over a day or so by the Germans. So advancement in technology and warfare saw gliders as a way of bringing men in. The other thing to consider with this as well, and this carries on through the Normandy Cat or Operation Overlord, it'll carry on Operation Market Garden, is that uh, the amount of aircraft availability. So you don't have enough aircraft to use in one go to transport
yeah,
huge amounts of paratroopers. And a workaround with that, again, using the advancements in technology at the time, is a glider can still be used to bring in
troops.
the troops and also anti-tank guns, jeeps that you mentioned. You can bring in a bit of hardware for you, so you've got some bigger caliber weapons on the ground to wait for then the ground forces that land amphibious to then come in and reinforce and
Yeah.
support.
You
So
cover that makes a lot of sense. In that perspective, it's material used for the glider. Okay, there's no engine, there's no fuel, no
yeah,
mechanics, you could say. Um, yeah, troops, yeah, way of bringing in, a group of troops as one in together. Hopefully in a more confident way, say as a paratrooper, where they could be scattered. But you covered off a really good point there, which is again something else. I mean, this is for another conversation itself, is Normandy, not enough aircraft or even gliders. So guys went, sorry, this is way off topic, but it's something I'm looking into
Yeah.
for, that around my home area, which weirdly brings us back to, Sicily as well, that, highlighted. I say this because it was unbelievable because so not enough aircraft,
Yeah.
gliders. So people think all the paratroopers in the 101st and the 82nd went via air. Actually, no, they didn't. There were elements of the 506, 501st, 505th. All of the 50s went via sea. There were elements from all of those parachute infantry regiments went via sea because there wasn't enough aircraft, is what you said. And I'm going to bring it back to Sicily, by the way, Ben, um,
Yeah.
because I think it was the night before. I think it was either Friday night or Saturday night. We were in the bar and talking about history, saying I really want to explore around my local area because there was quite a few marshland areas that were involved in Operation Overlord, i.e. D-Day, where the 82nd, certainly just outside my hometown, which is near Bridgend, Camp St. Mary's Hill, but there's also another two other camps here called Heronston, and the 82nd Airborne went through both. More so the HQ element and the military police element went through Heronston, which is just behind Island Farm, which is the German Great Escape. So when I said the name Bridgend the night before, and this is the area I was looking in, and we were in, I think it was Catania we were in, and we were walking around, and it was Alec, who called me and said, "Hey, Leighton, come and check this out." And I hadn't seen this before. Certainly not on the British. You see it more so on the American graves or the headstones. But for British, there was a Royal Navy chap there and said that he was from Bridgend. Every other place, and I think it might have been another two graves dotted throughout that cemetery that said where they're from, somewhere in Scotland.
Yeah.
But there was somebody there from Bridgend, which I found felt quite poignant to see. It was like I hadn't
Yeah.
seen that in the numerous cemeteries or graves, I've seen, for the Commonwealth graves, but to see a hometown on there, and it was one of the guys remembered it from the day before that I'd been talking about. So a little bit of research that feeds back into what you just said about not enough aircraft, which,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you just I'm going to swing it back to Normandy very, very quickly. But yeah, you mentioned the 82nd Airborne, 101st Airborne that are having men land via what would come in Utah Beach. But you also had the British 6th Air Landing Brigade that also would come in via sea onto Sword Beach.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, because insufficient
Yeah.
gliders, etc. Exactly the same reason. So between the 12th Devons, 1st Royal Ulster Rifles, and 2nd Oxfordshire Buckinghamshire Light Infantry, yeah, varying levels would also land via sea because of the lack of gliders,
There's a
aircraft.
particular reason for this as well, isn't it? I was reading this the other day because I'm going on a pattern route at the moment around his blood and guts speech in those locations. Um, because you'll have to excuse me on who the commander was, and who made this recommendation. He wanted all the airborne going at the same time. He didn't want them staggered, which could have freed up some of those aircraft. He wanted them at the same time,
Yeah,
operating at the same time, which then resulted in the shortfall of aircraft available for other men, which is why they had to go via sea.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Again, I want to ask if you know who that command, who made that decision. Because obviously I'll send us down another rabbit hole, but obviously we're here to talk about Sicily.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, to bring it back on the Ponte Grande Bridge, and we said that we weren't going to do a history lesson in this podcast. It was just to give people an overview, an idea of where we've been and some of the different stories that we were talking about, not necessarily around the direct actions and the lessons that were learnt from it. And we spoke about aircraft recognition, but it's more relevant to the US sector, a little bit in relation to Primasol Bridge as well that we went to on the Sunday. So that was day two on the ground, wasn't it? But yeah, aircraft recognition was a big thing. And I'll hold back on that till we get to the US sector. But yeah, we cover the Ponte Grande Bridge, the actions there. There's a small bit of Italian concrete down within what's now a little restaurant area. So you can see parts of that. The original ramp of the bridge is still there, so you can stand next to that. You can see it. There's a memorial plaque on it, if you can class it as a memorial plaque. And that was one thing that definitely stood out to the guests on the tour, that there wasn't a huge amount of memorials that, well, made reference to British forces and a liberation, because I think it's fair to say the complexities around the Italian perspective and point of view, whether occupation, oppression, fascists,
Mhm.
uh, liberation, to this day, it's still discussed.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, yeah, going back, and I mean, this is like, you know, what you said in the message before this, and I sort of crying out for help. Hey, Ben, what do we talk about? Because this is very new to me. The lack of recognition, or what we perceived as lack of acknowledgement of what we covered off. I mean, going back to that Ponte Grande Bridge. I mean, I was looking at drone footage we were talking about it to see, um, look at the surroundings, and you can see the former bridge. You can still see it there. And I'll get that up on YouTube, like and subscribe, on an Instagram. But yeah, you can see it, but that lack of recognition, lack of something. And I think in Europe, possibly mainland Europe, I like to think that they might have like a black and white photo next to it
yeah,
saying, hey, this is here, or even a diagram or something to sort of say you are standing right next to it. Because some people, you could go there, if it wasn't for you, you could go to that bridge and think that was it, when actually it's the one next to you. It's
yeah, the one
that
that,
side.
yes,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Yeah.
And with the memorials that we saw as well, uh, next to the memorials, you would have a flagpole with the Italian national flag. So again, very different for those that have been to Normandy before, where you'll be used to seeing the Allied nations flags fly in next to the memorials. Very different here, and there's reasons for it. Um, but
That's
yeah,
good
again,
one.
another interesting talking point amongst the group around the commemoration, remembrance
Mm.
of the Second World War in Italy.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I mean, there's so much to see, and we had 2 days. I mean, we were going from. I remember we were on the bus for about 45 minutes from an hour from when we finished off at Point Dorillo and going to the Catania Cemetery. We were on the bus for about 45 minutes to an hour, but felt like we needed. I felt like we'd seen a lot,
Yeah,
by that point, and I felt it was. But what did find quite interesting was the amount of pillars, pillboxes
yeah.
along the route, the various routes that we took, and you even highlighted a German position as well, for a high-ranking officer. I can't remember which officer it was. Do you remember when we were on our way to Gela Bridge or Gela Beach, sorry, up in the hills? There was somebody's HQ was up there.
You've got me thinking now.
I can't remember. Bobby will know because we were talking. It was up in the hills, up in the hills. We were on the.
About the Hermann Goering division
That was it.
that was positioned of what would be north of Jella or Jailer
Mm,
beach, because it gives you a chance on your running to see the terrain, the high ground
yeah,
that's probably a good 20 miles north of Jailer. Uh,
yeah,
then you start to hit the defensive layers, especially on major road junctions, roadways leading off the beach or breaking out into the countryside, where you got the Italian concrete fortifications. And several of these were key features for the 82nd Airborne to take out as well. I think was it the Y junction was one of them, or referred similar to that, about 10 miles north of Jailer. Uh, and yeah, you've got the what is I'd class a bit of a plain flat area sitting behind Jailer before you've got high ground off to the east and west, and then to the north in the distance you've got that pretty high. Oh, I don't want to say mountains. I don't think they were that
no, no,
high.
it makes
You're
no.
still probably talking a good 600 meters. Uh, So yeah, the terrain was a key feature to look at.
Interesting, yeah. It really is though. I mean, what I found bizarre is, you said there were photos. I think we might have been in Catania, um, which again, there was some heavy fighting going on there. You were with us were you with us on the Friday when we went into the centre for ice
Yes.
cream and coffee?
Yeah.
And obviously a couple of us, myself and Ben Gilbert, I think somebody else, we started doing then and now photos because there were photos that we saw in the museum, which is a very small one. I found it very basic and no gift shop, which for me is very disappointing again. Because I want to buy something, I want to learn more about, what's happened there, what this museum is telling me about. So I want to look for, any books I could buy. That's why I want a gift shop. Not because I want a fridge magnet. Um, but that is actually another reason. But no, seriously though, it's so we were going into Catania, we were going for food, etc. And obviously I wanted to try and do a little bit of White Lotus sightseeing, but also as well, yeah, seeing some of the places where there was heavy fighting. But again, you could go and do tours there, but again, I think you just get targeted for pickpockets, to be honest with you. And it's caught. But where we were, I felt like we saw a lot more. But obviously, going back to the photos, sorry, that we did see of Catania, I find this really, really interesting that you saw the Tommies in shorts, fighting in shorts. I mean, you relate that to Afghanistan, some of the troopers who are way out in the Bondu. That's how they fight, but obviously because they're by themselves, they're a little bit rogue, you could say. But I suppose I just found it very interesting to see the Brits fighting in shorts. Um,
Well,
because
they've been used to it out in Africa, so
yeah, yeah, you're right. It's just that's gonna be horrible on your knees. 'Cause at least the guys in Afghanistan, when they have to do that. Obviously, I know it's because of the heat, it's ventilation, but they'd have knee pads. But obviously, I don't think they were thought of back then. Um, just yeah, very, very basic. Yeah, you could talk about this all day again. This the sort of uniform, the kit they were wearing, carrying. God, that's
yeah.
a topic in itself, isn't it? But I just it's an interesting place, Ben, and I loved it. And I'm dying to go back there, if I'm honest with you. I think it's more to see. I think we've only scratched the surface. I mean, we talked about the 82nd Airborne, obviously went to Gala Beach, the first infantry division, and I sent, a message to John McManus, who's written about the first, Marine Division. He's like, "Oh my God, you're there!" To have that guy, somebody like him say that to me, I'm just, 'cause he hasn't been there and he's written about them, but obviously he's done the Normandy, he covers the Normandy stuff, but you know, yeah, it's just to go into these places.
Yeah.
I'm just learning about them and I'm fascinated by them. So imagine knowing about them, like something like John McManus and not jealous, but in awe that you were there. It's quite, I don't know, it's just you took us into excellent places, is what I'm saying. And like I said, I do feel like we scratched the surface with that place.
Yeah, like we said at the start, we were limited on time and also distances of places, especially when you start to head down to the American
Yeah.
area of landings from Catania. But yeah, Jailer was interesting to be on the beach, nice flat open beach. You'd also got the old pontoon that was there that the Americans would have tried to utilize. We spoke about the landing of the Rangers in the early hours to take out the gun batteries in the area ahead of the main landings coming on to Jailer Beach. The battle in what was a considerably smaller town to how you see it today. And then the reaction of the Germans and Italians as they then kind of, you could say in the afternoon, late morning, get their act together and start to push towards Jailer, especially the Hermann Goring division that we spoke about, coming down from those hills, pushing in, and lessons learned by the Germans as well with deploying your armor tanks towards a beach that's being assaulted when you've got destroyers sitting out
Yeah.
off the coast that very quickly, as long as someone can observe and spot for you, you've got some heavy caliber that can be brought down onto the tanks and cause a lot of damage.
Big
Um,
as boys, you could say in one sense, in terms of size. But actually, sorry, Ben, I know you mentioned it, certainly around Galebrew, beach, the pontoon and
Yeah,
the state of it now, and how long that has been like that. Because I think you highlighted it out to us as well, that actually it's
yeah, yeah. So the Italians realizing that or believing the Americans would use it, they did blow spans on it, and to this day, you've obviously got spans missing,
still
uh,
there.
missing in it.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
There are photos of that on social media, and I think there's a photo of it actually intact as well on social media because I do it then and now with my drone, you know, obviously as well as, I'll cover this in a second, but, you know, when you highlighted that to me, you know, and I obviously, I'm off to the side Googling this because obviously I'm very lucky in that respect that I can do that because I'm doing all this social media stuff and taking photos of the group in these places. So I suppose if I hadn't have done it then, I would have done it after, your talk, but just to
yeah.
see it and obviously get the drone up and I suppose try and recapture that photo from 1943 when it's intact and doing it now, what it looks like now,
Yeah.
haven't addressed it. That for me, that's a piece of floating history, you could say. It's interesting why they haven't knocked it down, rebuilt it. There must be a reason behind it.
I think from what I could see, I think it's still usable because they got that metal bridging that I guess will be on rails, roll over it, so they still can use it. I think because I was trying to work that out straight away, and yeah, it probably prevents people going on and using it if it's not
Yeah,
over. So and it was obviously gated off. You can't get
I
onto
can see that.
the.
Looking at
Uh,
the drone footage now to see, I could
so
tell it was gated off, but
yeah,
it's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal piece of, I want, yeah, before you even get onto the beach, there's a memorial there as well, which I thought was quite nice to see.
yes,
I mean, it's
yeah.
nothing grand. It's just, I suppose a nice plaque bolted onto a bit of a rock. Um, but that was nice to see. I mean, obviously, you had the first infantry division come ashore there. Um, don't ask me what regiment. Um, but yeah, no, it's just incredible to see that, and the fact, when you highlighted it, just yeah, it just makes you wonder why. But I like it.
And then from Jailer, we switched back to the 82nd Airborne,
Yep,
started to head out eastwards towards several of their drop zones, which, as we've kind of just alluded to earlier on, was completely scattered 35-mile-an-hour winds, small pockets of men coming down, grouping, then trying to form up to put in attacks on positions that they were allocated as their objectives to take. And we tracked that round over up onto the high ground to the east to the Pont Drillo and the positions overlooking that. You got a small battery positioned on the high ground overlooking the bridge. Um,
that was phenomenal, mate. That was that again. That place, those two hills littered with bunkers.
yeah,
Phenomenal, and that's quite a significant piece of 82nd history as well. I believe it was the 505th that attack. No, that was part of that attack.
yeah,
Um,
with their memorial plaque as well on the side of the house.
mm,
And I think the bonus extra for us,
yes,
I was aware there was a small museum there, but I just thought with us being there in November it'd be closed. So we went up onto the high ground, we
yeah,
did our talk, we explored the bunkers, defensive positions, and then a Sicilian man who's clearly very proud of the history, and he's kind of the custodian of that house.
loved
Just
it.
the battery, the memorial on the side of his house came out and invited all of us in to go to his little museum, this little gem that he's
Oh,
got.
yeah. And there's a fun fact, isn't it? He joined us in the team photo afterwards.
Yeah, he did, and he was wow. He was very very keen to have a
He
photo
was, he was keen.
with all the group, and yeah, I'm sure no doubt over the years he's met veterans that were
Yeah.
he's probably met family members. He's probably still in contact, and he'll have a little group on
Yeah,
probably on social media that he'll post and say people are coming back. And
one day, yeah, I'll have to look at that. I mean, what I liked about that place as well, I mean, we were there for quite a bit of time. Again, we had the gorgeous weather, and then when you do get up to the on the hill, I mean, it's all great where you did that talk describing the situation, the scene of the battle,
yeah,
then just to go up and climb. I didn't do the other hill, regrettably,
yeah.
but I was able to get the drone up and see, and I'm so glad that people were able to go up there and explore and find the other bunkers because I was lucky enough to see it from the air, but I didn't go up myself. I don't know why. Um, but you get to see it, when you're up at those positions, you get to see what's there. You get to see what's coming towards you as well. I suppose in a way it's very advantageous in terms of a tactical position because there's nowhere to hide, if I remember rightly. As I looked at my drone footage now just to make sure that I felt like there was nowhere to hide in one sense.
No, from the attacking perspective, if you're down towards the bridge area, there was no cover. It's just open. Um,
It is, yeah. My God, like again, I'm just looking at the photos now. So I mean, it's not being me being rude and on Instagram looking, but no, you're right, and there is nowhere to hide. It's you've got an
fields.
elevated position. It's very open field. Again, this I'll put this up on social media for people to see and be able to get that over, that appreciation of it. But they were in a good position, the Germans.
But the lessons learned, again, a very good discussion point that cropped up there was around the C-47 Sky Trains, Dakotas, as we refer to them, flying in, and the ships out at sea. There'd been a German bombing raid just prior to the C-47s coming in, and the anti-aircraft crews on the ships basically open fire up towards the fleet of American aircraft. And unfortunately, you see aircraft being hit, destroyed, paratroopers obviously being killed in the air with the aircraft crashing, so on. The lessons that were learned from that uh, was around the identification and to assist to try and prevent friendly fire incidents. This is where you have the introduction then of what we now refer to as the D-Day stripes. So they are the black and white stripes that will be painted onto all Allied aircraft and also gliders. So that recognition would hopefully prevent friendly fire incidences such as what happened in Sicily. So not only were crews having to contend with strong winds, whether it was gliders being blown off course, landing in wrong locations, paratroopers misdropped because of the winds. You've also got friendly fire incidents from the naval armada approaching that fire up and cause issues for the airborne operations. So that was one of the key points we discussed there as well on recognition and those what are now famous D-Day stripes.
No, that's interesting. It is. And again, partly, I think it was the fight. Yeah, I think we covered off the 505th, wasn't it? That participated in that battle at where we were. Um, and if people remember, what I wanted to do for that, I think it was down to timings as well, because this chap is based in the US. His uncle, I want, I think I might have been speaking to you about it prior. I was just trying to find something, just a slither of information around one of the Nyland brothers. I think it was Robert or Bob Nyland, who was one of the four brothers who goes on and he dies or is KIA in Normandy, who obviously forms part of the original or the story that Saving Private Ryan is based on. And obviously his son, um, oh, sorry, going to kill me for forgetting his name, but Pete, that's his uncle. We had on the podcast a little while ago. And the thing I wanted to do to him, because I was speaking to him saying, hey, we're going here and I want to try and find some information on your uncle, and take photos where I can. I just couldn't, and I couldn't find anything of which could have. I think I spoke to you about this before as well. Just something that just indicated that he was there. But no, mate, that was incredibly interesting So I think
Uh,
obviously just sort of, but I do want to cover this off, so what I found was amazing was not only that it felt like that you had been there before, because of obviously your understanding of the land. Obviously, we go back to how your prep was unbelievable on this. I think that's something to be applauded, and I like to think that a lot of guides do the same. If not, I think that is the standard of what you do, especially if it's a place they haven't been to before, because I think everyone on that tour believed that you had been there before because of that level of knowledge and understanding and appreciation of the ground.
yeah.
Um, but also, yeah, I want to touch on your communication with the bus driver. I got told he spoke English.
And I definitely don't speak Italian.
So what Ben did was I thought it was brilliant. What was it? Google Translate via voice, was it? What was that?
Yeah. It was straightforward, quick and simple. We communicated backwards and forwards via Google Translate, and he was absolutely brilliant driver.
He was.
More than happy to take us everywhere that we'd planned. Nothing was too much, and even communicating via Google, and then the
Good for
usual
him.
thumbs up, nodding at each other in agreement. Uh, People at the back of the coach would probably have no idea that he didn't speak English, or yeah.
You wouldn't. And the only reason I know is because I saw it and I was so impressed by it because I could see you passing the phone back and forth.
Not while he
And,
like,
say
will
again.
have not while he was driving. We'll
No, not
just
when he was driving. No, 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 no. It was when we were stopped. For any police officers listening. And we won't tell you his bus driver's name either. No, it was, but no, I thought it was utterly fascinating. I think that's out of the box thinking as well, because how many people would have thought to do that? And I think that again, that's a credit to yourself and that, you overcome a problem, that problem solving. And, and I think that's the brilliance of technology, good or bad with technology these days. That's where it scores big in my books. And I think you nailed it, mate. I mean, so I think moving on, because obviously, yeah, this is only supposed to be like a 40 minutes, but, it hasn't kicked us off yet. Because obviously I've only got the free version now, but I hope it hasn't, it's still recording. So, um, people have said they want to do more tours, and I think that's what's encouraged me to keep it going. Or they said they don't want to stop.
yeah.
And even like I said, I had a message yesterday chatting with someone, and they said they were gutted when we heard that we were stopping, and because of the community, the friends, the family, that people have traveled to the US to spend time with people they've met on our tours, and vice versa, or gone to Europe. Even hell, I seen something on social media yesterday where one of our tour guests went to Strasbourg to, meet up with another tour guest. It's quite warming, and I love that. And I love that. And I think I said on the buses, I love that. This is what our tours have done, that we've had, we've got people from, various different backgrounds, you know, also, walks of life, all different ages, from, a 16-year-old girl to, gosh, 60, 65-year-old, chaps. And it's just phenomenal. And people just get on. They just it's a community, you could say. So when people said, hey, don't stop, I'm like, oh God, don't do this to me. And the funny thing is, right, and I think this is going to bring us, I was in the car with one of the guys back in Aldbourne, in our Aldbourne meetup. Somebody had to jump in with us in my car because we didn't have enough room in the World War II military vehicles we had with us. And if you're driving around, like, even then I'm thinking, what'd be really cool is we did something at Aldbourne a bit more because there's so much to see here. As well as I'd love to go back to, Sicily. We've spoken Normandy. But I think one thing I think we know, the core of this is because of Band of Brothers, and a lot of tour groups go to Aldbourne. This is nothing, no slight on them or anything like that, because you could spend all day there, or not just Aldbourne, but the area, and as well as the surrounding areas. You could spend a couple of days there, and I think that's what I want to do. And I think speaking with you is, I think we've agreed on, um, because there's so much we could do, and I think it links into what we are at the core, Band of Brothers. We get to explore that, but also do a little bit more of that. Not just Allborn, but do a little bit more of some of the locations. But we look at the 501st, 502nd, um, and yes, there is an actor available to come with us, one who hasn't been on our tours before, which adds that perspective of being people get to have that interaction. But yeah, What do you think, Ben?
I think you know my view that there should be more tours in the future, and that was the feedback from the guests, clients on the
Mhm.
ground. And you've only got to look at one of the young ladies that flew all the way from Thailand to
Oh,
be
wow. Yes.
2 days, and that says a lot, and that kind of suggests that things are being done right. And I
Yeah. I
see
love that.
if it was to end. So yeah,
By
tours need
herself. I have
you
to know, by herself.
yes by
She
herself.
was lovely. And again, I think Trisha, wasn't it? Trisha's name. God, don't start, don't hate me if I got that wrong, Trish. Um, but yeah, and I think what I liked about that is to see her, brought into the group. You're by yourself. What are you doing by yourself?
Yeah.
I love that, in fact.
But you also know that I'm a big advocate for the history that is on our doorstep here in the UK, and it is not tapped into enough as far as I'm concerned. All along that south coast, if Normandy is of interest, uh, that whole south coast region, there is so much to explore and learn, and that's definitely what I'd like to get you and your group tapping into more, as well as some of those European
Yeah.
battlefield.
But no, you're right. It's I think we've spoken again, this is something we've spoken about, like some of the places I've messaged you about and something that I'm looking into. I mean, hell, I'm hoping to do something for one of the, team members, former team members, maybe team member. I don't know, I'll have to speak to him. He used to do our website casting because of what he's looking into, and he's trying to fill a gap of this chap's history in World
Yeah,
War II, and i.e. that's marshalling camps with the 23rd Infantry Regiment, 2nd Infantry Division, and their time in South Wales.
yeah,
So I'm hoping to go and get the drone up over to the camp he was at near Swansea, and then the marshalling camp he went into. So weather depending, it's about an hour away from my parents. So if I get time, and try and do that for him, because you're right, Ben, there's a lot there. There is a lot, and no one, when people think of the UK, they think of Masters of the Air stuff and the 8th Air Force. On my doorstep, I've got the 6th Armored Division and their locations, which is something I want to look into a little bit more now because of a particular speech of Blood and Guts by a Mr. Patton or General Patton, and looking at where, because he did a tour of that, and I'm trying to find out where those tours were. I know of one, and there's another one in Malvern, I believe, unless you know. But it's because there's so much. That Blood and Guts, that famous Blood and Guts speech, that was in England. We talk about those seaborne elements of the 101st and the 82nd Airborne. They went via South Wales, most of them, or a lot of them, some of them, a good portion of them. Got the records, the history records, obviously there was Southampton, but a lot of them went through South Wales. There's so much here. And you're right, no one looks into it that much. They go to the Winston Churchill, the bunker in London. They go to, Bletchley Park, or they go to Thorpe Abbotts, or, they go to the 8th Air Force stuff, which is great. It's wonderful. But there are other stuff, and you can really explore the countryside of, you got, but,
yeah.
got Bomber Command. Again, I don't think that's touched enough, to be honest with you. But yeah, there's a lot here. So what I'm proposing is Aldbourne, 101st, you still got that Band of Brothers history, but we do a little bit more. We also look at the rest of the 50, the 101st, or the 506, 501st, 503rd, sorry, the 502nd, sorry, in England, and like a weekend. I think what we've got to decide is a date, that wider history, because there's so much there. We scratched the surface in August. What we saw, I would remove Pentaco Woods because it just takes too much time, and there's lack of parking. There'll be a voting button or a button of interest if you last this long on the podcast, which is about an hour and a half. Wow. I told you we were talkers. I would cut out of this tour moving forward, but I would spend more time at Littlecote. Chiltern Foley is not off the table because there are ways in, that I'm exploring, and being able to see that up close of where there was a jump school where the 502nd were based. You got the 501st on a Lambo, and again, linking it back into that Saving Private Ryan story and what the 501st achieved as well. I mean, there's so much, and we can talk about so much and do so much. I think that'd be a good kickoff, mate, to be honest, and keep the community going.
I'm sure there'll be discussions over the next few weeks, and it wouldn't surprise me if you've got announcements early in the new year.
Is that to me or is that to the group?
That's the year.
To me.
Yes.
Right to me. Announcement from me or to me.
from you to the group.
Yes. No, I agree, mate. Yeah, and I think for this one, I think as a thank you to the patrons, I'll be honest with you, as long as the tour guide is paid for and the bus is paid for and the actor is paid for, I'm not, it's not going to be expensive in my eyes, as long as we can cover our tour guide and cover the general expenses of the people. But also the great thing about this is, remember touring? He's on standby as well. So if we don't have a bus, we might have some military, World War II era vehicles as well. If I can get him some accurate numbers, I think that's the tour. I think we've just got to discuss some dates. I might be on a work course for 2 weeks in April now. So we might have to look at March, or we'll have to look at something. I want to do, nice weather because you got the British spring for people to enjoy. But I think the itinerary would be really, really cool because there's so much we can see and really show people. And no one else is doing this or done this as well. And that's no slight on any other tour group. It's just, I want to explore what's on my doorstep. And so do you. And I think it's just an untapped resource. So I've already seen a couple of locations just from Google Maps and some books. Um, yeah, I think it's an untapped resource for you can it can be a start of something as well. Of one an idea I had with Francois, in the car in Aldbourne was imagine doing a tour we could track easy company slash band of brothers, but over doing it a course of a weekend, but over 2 years or three 2.5 years. So you do every 6 months you'll do right. We'll do Aldbourne. Normandy, Eindhoven, and then Belgium, and then you can obviously that's probably 2.5 years. One plan, but again, love to see what's in our backyard, as they say, because there's so much.
As well as Europe.
As
So
well as Europe, of course, of course, of course. Go back to Sicily. I'd go back to Sicily in a heartbeat and do more. I feel like we scratched the surface. Bobby Schofield said he'd come with us either as a guest
yeah,
or a VIP guest, either or. He doesn't care.
let's also
That's how much he's interested into it.
let's wait and see what season three SAS Rogue.
Yes, I think that's our ideal, isn't it? Is what is on that, and we can incorporate Bobby into it is that sort of angle. Or he comes as a paying guest, but he's keen to come on more, which I think speaks volumes of how Sicily went and the community and the people we had on the tour as well. I think that's a volumes of Bobby now, who's probably going to be a mega star after this film comes out because he's finally been announced as being in it, the Beatle films. And I think we were lucky enough, me and you especially, because we were at the bus at the front with him, where he showed us his accent, or he told us that he spoke with the accent he was using as Neil Aspinall in the movies,
Yeah,
which I think he was quite shocked that we were Beatles fans, or I was a Beatles fan, because when he sort of just mentioned it, he didn't think, I don't think he was expecting that reaction of, oh, what? You're in the Beatles films? So, yeah, so it was incredible to hear him that was going to be his next project as well. So I'm really happy for Bob because our experience was unbelievable with him. So to see that he's got this an unbelievable gig, yeah, couldn't think of a better bloke who's going to be doing it.
I think the group should look forward to news in the new year, definitely, and they'll have things to look forward to.
Yeah. So we're chatters, aren't we, mate? Sorry.
Yeah.
It's hour and a half. It's only meant to be 40 minutes. So yeah, no, thank you for listening. Of the thread, whether this post on Patreon or Instagram or even YouTube, and Allborn slash 101st in England tour is something you'd be interested in. But either way, we're doing it, whether you're interested or not, I would say, because whether there's 4 of us or 5 of us or 20 of us, it'll still be a fantastic weekend out exploring history of this very famous unit. So thank you for listening. It's goodbye for me.
Yeah, and goodbye from me. Thank you for having me along, and I wish all of your followers a very happy Christmas and New Year, and looking forward to seeing people in the new year.
And yeah, Merry Christmas to you all as well. I forgot to add. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. And yeah, speak to you soon.